you top, you add like some depression and anxiety we might already have in midlife, especially if we're like anywhere near the menopausal experience. And this is a really trying time for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's an even more trying time for people who suffer from seasonal affective disorder.
Mm.
And I am just learning more and more about that. That's why I want to chat with you today because I know it's a serious issue,
Yeah.
and I want to explore, like, just learn about it. What are the signs? And I also worry that people around me might have it, not even know it, and I'd like to know how to support them. So yeah. So can you tell me from your experience, like, what is SAD, as they call it, and is it
Yeah.
fairly new, like as a diagnosis?
No, first of all, I'll answer that last question. It's not new. It's been around for a really long time. I think it's getting more and more coverage these days. It's SAD stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder. And we know that something called winter blues probably affects about 35% of Canadians. And it's interesting, you mentioned Vancouver, you mentioned Toronto. The reality is that the further north you go in the globe, on the globe, around the world, the higher the incidence and the higher the rates of winter blues and seasonal depression becomes. And basically, that's because it's really linked to shorter days, less daylight, more grayness. And that tends to happen as we go further north around the globe. So
Right.
in Canada, it's quite common to have winter blues. As I said, like 35% of Canadian adults. And unfortunately, it's something like much of depression that is increasing in prevalence among women versus men. And the actual seasonal affective disorder itself, which is the more severe form of winter blues, happens to about 5% of Canadian adults. So it's not uncommon, and it can be really debilitating. And
Hmm.
what it is it's basically a worsening or sort of a total new onset of depression. Usually it's during the winter months. So starting when the days get shorter, when it's colder, when it's grayer, and hours of daylight diminish, and it usually lasts through the late fall and winter months. And people experience the same symptoms they would with regular depression. So, feeling down, feeling irritable, having a hard time enjoying life and taking pleasure in things, sleeping too much often, feeling kind of slowed down, feeling just really like you've lost your pizzazz, lost your zip for life, don't want to feel motivated and get out. And then in more severe forms, people actually start to feel like, I can't go on, I can't live. They feel suicidal
Oh,
when it gets severe. So it's really like a depression that comes at this specific time of year.
okay. So now, is that something, this is probably like a really common question you must hear a lot, but is it something that an increase in vitamin D supplements can help with?
No, I don't think it's that simple. Just like regular depression, you can't vitamin it away.
Yeah.
Um, it's a real disorder, and there are things you can do, but it's not really enough just to take some more supplements. For some people with very mild forms,
Mhm.
maybe increasing your nutritional content, eating better, exercise. Those kinds of things are interventions that we usually recommend for more mild depression, and they often help. But when we move along the spectrum, we need more interventions. And specifically for seasonal affective disorder, we recommend a few different things. One of the things is, I like this phrase that I heard called find the light. And people say, if you suffer from seasonal depression, open your blinds. Like, don't sit in a dark room all day or a dark office or your dark house. Open your blinds. And even if it's grayer out, at least get some natural light if you can. Get outside, try and enjoy some daytime light. If you're in a place where there's very little daytime light or no sunshine, there are specific lamps people can get, seasonal
Yes.
affective disorder lamps, and they're really effective. You treat it like a medication where you do it every morning for 15 to 20 minutes, close exposure to your face, and that can be helpful for people too. So the light intervention is helpful. And then you can also time your sleep. So making sure that you go to bed at the same time every day and get up at the same time every day. Don't just get into bed super early at the end of your day after you're done, like work or family stuff or whatever, but time your sleep and go to bed and get up at the same time. And
So,
then the things like exercise and eating well are important.
so the timing your sleep, like, is it the routine that's very helpful about that, or is it the length of time you're sleeping? Like, what's the
Both.
bet? Oh, it is. Okay,
It's
interesting.
really both. Like it's really important to be on a good sleep schedule so that because our brains are creatures of habit, and the more they're used to falling asleep and waking up at the same time, the better we'll feel. You also want to make sure you're getting enough uninterrupted, good quality sleep in the morning, in the
Yeah.
day, in the night. I mean, so that you feel like you have a good amount of energy.
Yeah, it
So
is. It's so hard to get up in the morning in this weather. Like this
brutal.
rain, like
Yeah.
I don't want to get up and take my dog out for a walk.
Yeah.
It's the last thing I want to do. But
Totally.
luckily I have a dog who forces me to do it. But you
And that's
can't, not
good.
everybody has that. Okay, this is a great place to pause and talk about something really important, which is workplace wellness. Did you know that a recent study by Deloitte revealed that more than 75% of employees and over 89% of C-suite executives reported that improving their well-being was their number one priority, and that means even over career advancement. In fact, when they were asked about their priorities, over 75% of those respondents cited the following concerns: living above their means, eating healthy, getting enough exercise, and managing and balancing work and personal commitments. Now, COVID's obviously played a big role in our health and wellness over the past couple of years, and workplaces are starting to consider wellness as a strategy for employee retention and acquisition. They recognize that stress affects relationships with family, friends, and coworkers, and this has a direct impact on productivity and profitability. It's also a strong contributing factor to employee and executive retention. Founded in 1982, Workplace Options is the largest independent provider of holistic well-being solutions. Through their customized programs and a comprehensive network of credentialed providers and professionals, Workplace Options supports individuals to become healthier, happier, and more productive, both personally and professionally. Trusted by 56% of Fortune 500 companies, Workplace Options delivers high quality care digitally and in person to more than 79 million people across 116,000 organizations in more than 200 countries and territories. Workplace Options sets organizations up for success by starting with their most important asset, their people. Their programs help individuals improve their health and well-being and maintain a successful work-life integration. With their human-powered care approach, they're able to make a meaningful difference in people's personal and professional lives so they can thrive in both. To learn more or find solutions for you or your work environment, visit workplaceoptions.com and mention She 2.0. Now back to our podcast. Okay, so now that I understand more about it and what it is and how serious it can be, or, like there's obviously, different, it's like a sliding scale for some people, right? Like maybe somebody has very mild experience with SAD and they can sort of get through it with maybe, more exercise, one of those lights. I have seen those lights. And then, people with more serious symptoms and a degree of SAD, they require a lot more assistance. Now,
Sure.
outside of treatment, say I have a friend or a neighbor who I suspect could be suffering, and my fear would be that they would be someone who's suffering like on the more intense side you had mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. Like how can you help somebody like that? You can't force them into therapy or to take
No.
medication.
No. I always think whenever asked the questions, how do you help someone else? I think there's a few different steps. And the first step is just approaching them in a warm, neutral, caring way and say, hey, listen, are you okay? I've noticed you're not getting out of your house very much, or you're not the one walking your dog anymore. What's going on? I've noticed a change. They might shut you down on that first chance that you take to speak up. They also may That's okay. They might come back to you the next week and say, "You know what, Jackie, you're right. I'm not feeling great. Like, can we go for a walk and let me talk to you about it?" So, step one, like gently open the door and just put it out there that you notice something. You're not making any conclusions, you're not judging them. You're
Mhm.
just noticing in a caring, kind, empathetic way. That would be step one. And step two, then, if you continue to be worried or your worry escalates, maybe tell someone in their family if they have a partner, if they have other close people in their life who you know, and talk to them and say, you know what, I think we should both mention this to our friend and help them a little bit. So getting a little bit of support around. And then, sometimes things like sending them links to interesting articles that maybe talk about sad or maybe talk about depression, and just say, hey, I'm dealing with this. I found this helpful. Thought maybe you'd be interested. Happy to chat anytime.
Mhm.
You worry a little bit, if they've opened the door and they've told you a little bit, sometimes even saying to people, you know what, I found this therapist, they're fantastic. I found them really helpful to me, or I found them really helpful to another friend. You might want to give them a call. Or I'm on this medication. I found it's amazing to help me with my energy and help me feel a little bit happier and get back to myself. Talk to your doctor about that. So sharing what you've been through can often be really helpful. The people make them feel less ashamed, make them feel less isolated, and really help them feel a little bit more like they can take the step. You
Yeah.
can never force someone, as you said, to go
Yeah.
to therapy, to take medications, to see a psychiatrist, but reducing the barriers, increasing the information you give to them, reducing the shame, all of those things help. And again, it's not a one and done thing. It's like, try this and then come back and try that. And in their mind, they'll see, oh yeah, this person really does care about me. They're not judging me.
Yeah.
They'll start to come around to the idea.
Yeah. So now that leads me to my next question, which is how do you know if someone is suffering? Like are there any sort of easy signs, especially say, like say it's an older parent, right? Like I know my parents. If I said, "Is everything okay over there? You seem like really quiet," they wouldn't want to concern me, so they wouldn't tell me.
Right.
It could be a neighbor who I am keeping my eye on, but again, they don't want to bother you. Like maybe they're older and they think, "Oh, you've got kids and a job, and we don't want to burden you," or "I don't want to be a burden." Like,
Yeah.
and you certainly don't want to assume anything about anyone. Like, are there any little telltale signs that make it easy to kind of go, there might be something going on here?
If someone drops a hint and sort of, and you know them well and they're kind of stiff upper lipping it, or
Yeah.
um you can just say, listen, I know this is hard to talk about. You probably don't, you can probably don't want to burden me, but I'm happy to chat. I have time. I always have time for you. So sort of putting it out there, saying, okay, being transparent with your thought process, and say exactly those things. Like, I'm here for you. I know you probably are private or you don't want to burden me, but I'm okay. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
Uh, those would be some of the things you may want to try
Okay.
to just help someone else feel like they can speak to you.
Yeah. Like they feel comfortable and you're approachable.
Yeah,
Yeah, and safe. Like it's in confidence. That's a big thing. A lot of people don't like to share their mental health concerns. Um,
totally.
Now, bringing it back to like, say I was the one suffering, and I still work from home. A lot of people do, but whether you're work from home or working from an office, I imagine if you're suffering from SAD, it can make it really challenging to be productive at work,
Mhm.
or at home at work.
Yeah.
So, are there any things you would suggest, maybe around like you did mention something about keeping the blinds open with natural daylight? But are there other tips we can sort of use to help us keep that productivity and that like positive mental mindset somehow going just to get through that work day, like even around
Yeah.
nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I think the basic principles still hold true. Like, don't just let it fester, and don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to just go to work and I'm going to white knuckle it through and I'm going to suck it up." That's never the right approach to a mental health problem. It doesn't usually just go away on its own. So, the first thing is if you're feeling it, trust your instincts and get help. implement some of those things like the light, implement some of those things like exercise, trying to eat well. Don't just disregard them just because you're super busy and have work to do all day. Like, treat it. And if you need to get therapy or if you need to get medication, do that. Take the moment and the pause to get the help. Check your benefits, see what's covered. Do you have things like a therapist covered? Is there, massage, acupuncture, other things that are going to help you feel good physically and just relax physically so that you can feel better overall? Check into those things and actually do them and actually take care of yourself. And then, if you have a lunch break, get outside and go for a walk to break up the day and get outside and get some of that natural light if that's at all possible. And then, of course, this is always really tricky because everyone's workplace is different, everyone's structure and bosses are different, the culture at
Mhm.
different places varies so much. It's not always easy. In fact, it's mostly much of the time not easy for people to talk to their boss or to their HR and stuff about what they're struggling with. So some people say, "Oh yeah, you've got to tell them." And I don't always recommend that people tell them because sometimes that comes back to haunt people and they're treated differently. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation for us to have. But, know your workplace, know the people you're working with, know what the culture is. If it's a safe place, say, I'm not feeling great. Can I, bring my sad lamp and put it on a desk and have the same desk every day and sit by a window? Is that possible? Or, I need to take an hour off and go to therapy. Like, in some workplaces, that's fantastic and that's welcomed and nobody's mistreated after that. In some, it's not. So first of all, know your workplace and know what you can and can't do for your own benefits. I wish there was no stigma, but that's not, unfortunately, the reality. And so sometimes talking to, if it's not your boss, or letting coworkers know, sometimes that can be helpful because often people find, oh yeah, I'm not alone. Like, there are other people going through this as well. And there's so much to be gained from knowing you're not alone and knowing that you're not the only person struggling, whether it's sad, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether pretty much anything. None of us likes to feel like we're a freak or we're going crazy or we're on our own in this crazy world. So getting support of coworkers can be really helpful and really therapeutic in the right circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I think of other things that, just like participation, if you remember those videos, like take the stairs, do the things that give you just that little boost of energy, that can help, just provide like little bits of um positive energy to keep you going. Um, I think this has been incredibly helpful. I feel like I understand it a lot more. And you're right, there is such a stigma. But I feel like we are just dealing with stigma after stigma these days.
Mhm.
And we have to get rid of them because it makes us feel really lonely and vulnerable. Um, so Ariel, do you have any resources or some sort of like a plan of attack if someone is really suffering from SAD and they need help, whether it be, they don't even know they have it and they're trying to like determine if they fit the bill,
Yeah.
or is there like some great articles that can give them some advice or like type of therapy that you would recommend? I'm sorry, that's a very loaded question.
It's a broad question, but I'll do my best to work through it. Talking to your primary care provider, if that person is someone you feel comfortable with, is always a good place to start. They probably know local therapists or resources or people who you can talk to in your area. Even if your primary care provider is not someone you're totally comfortable with, they should be able to recommend. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but they should be able to recommend a therapist, or if you need medications or it's maybe more complex part of other mental health issues, they should be able to refer you to a psychiatrist. So that's often a good place to start. If you already have a healthcare provider, a mental health care provider in particular, start talking to them about what you're going through. Chances are they can probably guide you, and then you can have someone to be accountable for and talk about, okay, what am I doing for myself to get exposed to the light, get my sleep on track, get my nutrition okay, starting to exercise. There's certain types of therapies as well that are really, really helpful for for people who are depressed and just having trouble motivating, getting up, getting out of bed. So many people struggle with at this time of year with winter blues or sad. Um, a great therapy is called behavioral activation for this type of thing. It's not always easy to come by, but there are people out there who can do that kind of therapy. And then, talk to friends and see if other people have recommendations of good supports, resources. And then, they're Googling it is pretty good a lot of the time. You can find a lot of stuff, especially in Canada, like Center for Addiction and Mental Health has some good articles about seasonal affective disorder. Our website, BRIA, has some good resources, information, blogs about seasonal affective disorder. So really educating yourself, knowing what's out there is pretty good. And then just taking a chance and order a sad lamp. You can order them online. You can get them at local healthcare stores around. They're not too expensive for most people. And for people who have extended health benefits or a health spending account, they're often covered. And it doesn't hurt to just try it. So I'd say that's another resource. Invest the $50 to $100 if you have that, or if your benefits cover it, better yet. It's a really good investment to make to see if that's going to help on a regular basis, or invest in some exercise equipment to do stuff
Mm-mm.
at home if it feels too bleak to get outside. So there's some affordable slash free resources, ways to start, steps to take that you can then see. And if it doesn't go away after a few weeks to a month, and I really would reach out for professional help or professional mental health help, and open yourself up to the options of doing some therapy, or of maybe being on medication or doing other things if need be, to really make a proper intervention so you don't struggle through the whole season, because it's a long one,
Yeah.
especially in Canada.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I noticed you didn't recommend we hit a Caribbean beach. Is there a reason for that?
Uh, that's an expensive intervention, but that is
Okay.
definitely on my list of things to do.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Yeah,
take that advice.
yeah, yeah,
Ariel, I
exactly.
can't thank you enough. This has been super helpful. And, I hope anyone listening, if they're struggling, will, check out the show notes in the podcast. And I will post some of these really helpful links, especially to Bria. I get a lot of information off your website. Um, and if you know someone who is struggling, also check out the information, because it is great to share that with someone who might benefit from reading a little bit and not feeling so alone and isolated during this very long and cold Canadian winter. Thank you
Good.
so much, Ariel.
Thank you for having me. Always great to chat with you.